crown. I keep my ear to the street, I keep my eye to the clouds.
All I wanna do is be the best me. All I wanna do is be the best me. All I wanna do is be the best me.
What's up, guys? Manny, Carrera, your real estate resource, and this is episode number 3 of Whiskey Wednesday podcast sessions, where we sit with business owners, influencers, entrepreneurs, movers, and shakers over a glass of some fine whiskey. Today, I'm going to be joined by my good friend, investor, entrepreneur, and developer, John Deslongchamp. John, what's going on, buddy?
Hello, everybody.
Cheers,
Manny.
cheers. Thank you for showing up and being part of episode number 3.
What happened to one?
It's already out, iTunes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, we had to.
Skipped me 3 times.
Yeah, we had to get we got Teacher of the Year though.
Oh,
number
that's
1.
even better.
Yeah, he was podcast number 1.
More deserving.
Podcast number 2 last week we had the owner of Vitolas.
Oh, great.
So
Good guy.
yeah, so today's podcast, I'm really excited to have you on. I, for one, this guy is a big influence on, my life in real estate and out of it. And one thing that I enjoy about you is that you're just so, you're so informed, and you've experienced so much, and you've gone through so much in the success that you've had in life that you're able to share that. So I'm really excited for this podcast. Kind of want to start off with what we're drinking right now. You kind of want to tell us what we're drinking today?
Well, I started off with the Glenlivet.
Glenlivet.
15, and we finished that bottle. So now we're on the Macallan 15.
Yeah.
These are single malt whiskeys from Scotland. Very good bottles. I think that's the best they have here.
Glenlivet, yeah.
Glenlivet, Macallan.
450.
Not the best, but the age. I think 15 was the oldest I saw back there.
Yeah.
But I'm a single malt, non-peated kind of guy, so.
So you're a Glenlivet guy, and I got you drinking Macallan. Right?
I like a lot of Scotch whiskeys, but Macallan, I love it. Glenlivet's my favorite. But
Which bottle is your favorite from Glenlivet?
you know what? I take a 21 and sip that all day.
21?
Yes.
I haven't tried the 21, but for all you listening and watching, we actually just had John gave me a big lesson in whiskey the other day, probably a $220, $30 lesson. We had a drinking session the other day over lunch, and he kind of showed me the differences between whiskeys and taste, and I learned what peat was, right?
Well, yeah, because I was drinking, I think an 18
Right.
Glen over lunch, and you were drinking a Johnny Walker Blue, which I'm a fan either way, but I don't like the peat flavored whiskeys, Scotch whiskeys to be exact.
And for those that don't know, what is peat? Because I thought it was a guy that made whiskey.
It's a guy named Pete who keeps sticking his hands in the whiskey. No, the peated whiskey is really, during the distilling process, they burn peat to give that smoky flavor into it during the distilling process, and that's how you get that flavor that you taste, like in Johnny's and different bottles that have it. I don't like it. I think it changes the flavor too much for my palate, but some people do. I think Chivas has the same thing, but so I don't like that. Other people do. Just taste preference, I guess.
Yeah.
So what we did is we put these out, and I go,
Right.
he didn't know what the difference was. I go, well, let me order you one with or without.
Tell him what I was drinking though.
Well, you had the Johnny Walker Blue.
I was drinking black, actually.
Oh, black. I thought it was
I was
blue.
drinking Johnny Black on the rocks.
On the rocks, and I said,
And you showed up
yeah.
a little
I
late.
don't know how many I had. I had like 20. But easily
Just had
influenced
one.
by then. Okay, just one. But yeah, I showed up and ordered a 18 Glen.
Yeah, we got no, it was actually 25.
Well, I ordered one.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then, we're gonna argue like wives and husband here. So I showed up and I ordered mine, and I tasted it. I asked him what he was drinking. I'm like, do you like that? He goes, yeah, I pretty much like it. Well, let me taste it. And I tasted it. I go, yeah, it's the peat, and you didn't understand. So we went through that, and I said, I'm gonna order you shots right now of whiskey, different types, different areas from the Glens, and maybe an Irish whiskey, and plus your Johnny Walker. He went through all. By the time he was done, he loved his Johnny and started with the ones I ordered him, which ended up being a 25-year-old Macallan.
25
Now you can argue,
years.
well, it's the age. I get it, but 15-year-old Macallan will do just as good as as a
and this,
Johnny Black. In
this
my
Macallan's
opinion.
really
Not
good.
Way better. So.
Yeah, and that experience was really cool too, just because I've always been drinking Johnny. And for me, when I looked at whiskey, and even all my friends back in Florida that got me into drinking whiskey, they've always told me Johnny Blue was top notch, the best, you know? But
But before we start getting people yelling at us, there's nothing wrong with that type, okay? I'm just saying
Johnny's
my
good.
palate.
Yeah, Johnny's really good. But when you do taste the difference and kind of understand what peat was, which I didn't know, it really, my taste buds and my palate just kind of, I was like, what the hell is this? My first glass of whiskey, you know? But it tasted really good. It was really natural, and so I went from Johnny Black to Johnny Blue. They kind of tasted the same, and I tasted that peat. But when I drank that 25 year, that's when I tasted. It tasted more like barrel. You know, I felt like I could taste the
That's
actual
older,
barrel.
Whiskeys
that
don't
was
continue
wearing.
to age in the bottle once they're put in there.
Right.
Unlike wines, good grape wines can continue to age in the bottle, so you can drink a 50-year-old bottle.
So would it make sense for me to hold on to a 25 year for 25 more years?
No, it's not going to age. No. You may think so. Some people still argue that.
Yeah.
You know, but no, it doesn't. It doesn't
Cool.
keep maturing in the bottle.
Yeah.
So that's the business talk today, folks. All we need to know about whiskey.
All we need to
It's a
know
wrap.
about whiskey, that's why he's
Just
here.
kidding.
No, so you know, for the viewers, obviously, you know, whiskey's just one of your expertise. You're well, you said you're not an
I'm a
expert.
novice. I'm a novice in whiskey. I'm telling you guys I've drank it.
You
Been to
just
Ireland.
drink it, yeah.
Been
Okay.
to Scotland, Ireland. So.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. Grew up here in El Paso, born in El Paso, and started my own companies. At one point, I had up to 5 companies. Some of them with partners, others, you know, the only partner. My largest firm was a large security firm called CFI Security, which is a big defense contracting company, but had multiple departments inside of it, so we could handle everything from defense, medical, industrial, commercial,
The whole shebang.
federal, down to even a residential group. So we covered everything. Eventually, I would get acquired by a huge firm called Tyco, which is a large acquisition, especially with this region. So you want big corporations coming into El Paso, and when your smaller companies being bought out by big corporations, that shows the footprint and how far El Paso's gone. Because nobody goes to, you know, Oro Grande to buy a business because you don't even know it's there.
Yeah.
So the more big corporations that come in here, the more they notice, the more they want to come into El Paso, the more jobs that are created, even if they're acquiring guys like me. So, along with that, commercial properties. I've owned a commercial property company with some friends of mine, and later started my own residential companies and development companies. So, it started from that. You know, it's like I say, born and raised too. Came from nothing, created everything I have. So that's about as simplified as I can make it for now.
What age did you start your first business or?
Oh, my first business? Well, my first business was a lawnmower business. That's how far you want me to go back.
Okay, yeah, that's
Yeah, I go back. I mean, we're gonna bore your whole audience and at some point tune us out. But our first business, or mine, was mowing lawns. I remember I lived next to Fort Bliss, and all the soldiers would get housing, but they hated to cut grass, and most of them would get deployed here and they didn't have lawnmowers. So I thought, hey, wait, these guys have to cut their grass, or they're gonna have trouble doing their PTA or doing workouts and stuff, or get written up. So I would go over there with one lawnmower and a weed eater, and I'd knock on the doors. Hey, you need your lawn cut? He goes, yeah, how much? $15 from the back. This is like in the 80s, you know?
Yeah.
80s.
So were you cutting with scissors back then, or you had?
I had a lawnmower, a gas lawnmower. Boom, and I would start, and before I knew it, word of mouth, I would have like whole rows on Fort Bliss. Back then, you could walk onto Fort Bliss, and there I was with my tools and everything. I didn't have a car, so I was rolling onto Fort Bliss through the gates, going through the security. Guys just rolling in, you know.
That's insane.
I was from Mexico,
So back in the 80s, what would you say, starting your business as, you know, that lawn mowing company, what would you say was the marketing or what type of marketing did you have to do back in the 80s compared to nowadays?
Well, there's no social media in the 80s.
Right.
I mean, you had newspaper, and that was probably it, unless you did a television ad. So it was word of mouth, which really word of mouth gets you the best business.
Yeah,
because it's
definitely.
trusted business. So that's all I did. I would knock. I'd knock on a Friday night, go knock on all the doors, and write down everybody who wanted a lawn cut, and I'd go back Saturday and cut them all, and then pay behind them. Before I knew it, I could only do like 6 a day, 7 a day.
You realized,
And I had to hire neighborhood kids.
Yeah.
And then I went and bought more lawnmowers.
Oh,
So the next I know, there'd be like 5 guys with me pushing lawnmowers and weed eaters through Fort Bliss.
That's
We're like a
insane.
gang of lawnmower people. You know?
That's insane.
And then we start hitting them. So I'd earn, $15 a house. eventually we're doing all the residents in the neighborhood, and before you know it, I was making a lot of money. But then you start getting to an age where you got to do other things. You can't cut lawns forever. But I was actually doing lawnmower business and newspaper. To the point, to answer your question, in a nutshell, I've always been an entrepreneur. So I was always doing something. It didn't matter what it was. I was always looking for an angle and a way to make money. Because I can't. I'm one of those people who really can't work well for people.
Right.
I have to be my own boss. I can't. I'm not good being someone's employee.
You figured that out early.
Figured that out early.
That's good.
So that's what I do.
Yeah, I didn't. It took me a while, but now that I've figured it out, it's like never going back to that.
And I'm not knocking people who are employees. Obviously, there's great employees. It's just me. I butt heads too much. And I think maybe that's the whole entrepreneur side of a person.
Right. Good place.
And to clarify, because somebody mentioned to me, I know, well, when did you do that? Lawnmower business.
Yeah, at what age did you do that?
I didn't want to make it sound like it was 3 weeks ago. At my age. No, I was in 7th grade, so that would make me 12.
Yeah, 12 years old.
Yeah.
So since 12 and even before that, you had that entrepreneurial mindset, right?
Correct. I always had that, and I got it from my grandfather.
So would you say your grandfather was one of your biggest influences?
He was the only person in the family who owned his own company, and he owned a shoe repair place. As modest and as simple as that sounds, he was actually a famous cobbler in town. And my mother would make me go live with him. I'd say make, because I didn't want to go. She'd make me go live with him for the summer and go work and help him work on people's boots and shoes. It's called Crossroads Shoe Shop. It's still there after, I don't know, 50 years.
No way.
Yeah, but he keeps passing it down. He died probably about 13 years, 14. No, he died 20 years ago.
20 years. My grandpa actually does boots also. Since I was little, they had a spare room in my grandma's house, and he ran his shop from in there. He was working for a company at the time, but he was still doing his own thing on the side. So I remember going in and seeing leather everywhere. It
smells good, huh?
Yeah, it smells really good. But he used to get so creative. I remember when I was probably like 7 years old, and he made me a vest out of bubble wrap. A suit. A bubble wrap suit. I put this suit on, and it was funny, and I really liked it. I literally would wear it and walk around my house, and my dad would walk around and pop my bubbles. Yeah, so it was really funny. But yeah, my grandpa had kind of similar.
And if they're like, if your grandfather's anything like mine, they don't give you discounts. You walk in with your boots. Hey, Grandpa, can you put this? They only spoke Spanish, but can you put this on? He goes, yeah, sure, for the same price as everybody else.
The prices.
Or you want to work it off?
Yeah.
Okay. My grandfather was like John Wayne. He looked exactly like him.
Really? Cowboy hat,
cowboy boots, vet. I mean, he was a cowboy 24/7. Never spoke much, but when he did, everybody had to listen because he's like, oh, he's talking. So,
right.
One of those proud guys.
Yeah. So growing up, he was that person that you kind of looked up to. He has a business.
Yes, I always respect. And then my uncle underneath him, because my uncle would took over his business and would continue to make it grow and stuff. So them too.
Yeah. And kind of going back to, your childhood. What was that environment like? Because obviously, entrepreneur, having that mindset doesn't, you're not born with it. Sometimes you have to, something in your life has to happen, a turning point, or something in your life has to happen where you just want more and start wanting that different lifestyle. So what was your childhood like? What was that environment like? Did you always have money? Did you come from, I know you mentioned, you didn't have, and this was probably in the previous conversation that we had, but I know growing up, you didn't always have, everything. So what was that like for you growing up?
No, my father was a military, he was in the Army, he was a sergeant. He served 2 tours of Vietnam, and that really took its toll on him. So it was hard on the family at a young age. So when my father was in Vietnam, I was a baby, 1, 2, 3-year-old kid. He went 2 times, and it stressed the family a lot. So growing up, I really just had my mother, and we struggled a lot at that time. So no, I didn't come from money. My path to success was probably a very difficult one. I mean, you go through projects as a young kid, growing up in different projects, feeling what it's like to have nothing. And then when you think you're poor, you didn't realize you could become poorer. And then one day you're sitting at the Salvation Army spending the night. And then you realize, can it get any worse than the Salvation Army? So yeah, that's my life. That's where I came from. So what inspired me to become successful? Well, doing that should be enough.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't. What inspired me to become an entrepreneur was just the family values, that no matter how poor you get, your family keeps values in you, and they keep instilling ideas, and you got to keep with them, keep true to yourself, and that'll lift you out of any situation you're in. So I would continue to go through high school and start college, and then after that I would start working for people. Found that I wasn't good at that, and started my own businesses again. I said I used to do it as a young guy, why not do it again, Yeah. I've always had little businesses here and there up until I was 22. And then after that, I joined the workforce and realized, God, this is horrible.
Yeah.
You work hard for a penny, and I decided it's like being broke again. So I can't do this anymore. So I started doing it. I had mentors along the way. Many people in this town, some very important, influential people here in this town today, who mentored me, who knew my plight, my story, and my success also became a personal interest to them. And so, over the years, I won many awards: Small Businessman of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year. I kept getting them, and it was really just following other people's advice.
Yeah.
It's an old saying, but it's true. Success is not built on just what you do by yourself and how smart you are and how well you sell or do whatever it is you're trying to create. Success is sometimes built on just how smart the people you bring around you.
Yeah.
And take their advice.
How smart that circle is, right? How smart the people that you're circling yourself with.
That's exactly true. There's an old Mexican saying, another one that says, you want to know the person you are, just look at the people around you.
Yeah.
And that'll tell you the kind of person you are.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a true thing. I don't know how to say it in Spanish. Maybe you can tell me.
I don't. I know in English it's pretty much just how you said it.
Well, I translated for you, so most Spanish speakers translate it.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a little caption somewhere on the bottom.
I know.
But so how important do you think, you mentioned that you had some mentors that looked at your success and that was just as important for them to help you see that success through. So how important do you think it is for somebody that wants more in life, that wants, to change their mindset and maybe take that road down entrepreneurism or start that business? How important do you think it is to have those mentors in your circle, always around you, and kind of, put up that wall towards the other people that don't need to be in that circle?
Well, that's a good question. I can tell you that I never took a step forward or a leap forward without consulting people, whether my mentors or people in the industry I was looking into. Whether it was real estate, whether it was a security company, I always would call somebody in that like industry who I knew and said, okay, why are you successful? What did you do? And would you mind talking to me? And they would. I remember before I started CFI Security, which was, again, it was a large acquisition. I sold it for an undisclosed value, but it was huge.
It's a lot of money.
I will tell you that before I started it, I was working for a company called Smith Alarm Systems, and this is when I finally, and they acquired Francis Security, and Francis Security acquired another company. So I went through acquisition, and finally said, I'm tired of acquisition. I need a stable place,
Yeah.
And although I was paid very well, I think at 25 years old, I was already making, I think I was pushing about $250,000 a year at 25 back in the 90s,
Wow.
So working with these companies, so they paid me well, but it wasn't enough for me, and I got tired of them being acquired. So I talked to the guy who owned Francis Security and picked his brain about it. He also was one of my mentors, and after we went through it, I knew I could do it. He told me, before you start business, why don't you go talk to the people you want to sell to? Get a foundation, get some reoccurring or residual income right off the bat, and go see what you can do so that you don't have such a hard
Yeah. Start researching.
A
before
learning
you
curve
consider.
and so much debt in the beginning. So I did. I went to Department of Defense to figure out what contracts to go out. I went to security directors for every hospital in town to see what contracts were going out and would they put their trust in me if I started a company. I already had a good name in this town with many of the, because I'd been in the security industry for a while, so I
Right.
wanted to go to them and say, hey look, I'm starting my own company, would you put your faith in me like you have for the last 5-6 years? Absolutely, John. So I went down getting handshakes. That's all I asked for. Just a handshake that you will do business with me.
Face-to-face.
I'm not saying give me your contract or give me this camera system or access control system. I'm saying if I start a company, would you give me an opportunity at your business? Absolutely, John. On a handshake, that meant to me that I had the door open, but two, I had kind of a little guarantee. So when I did come back, they remember that handshake and they were like, yeah, well, I got this. Let me throw you some bones. The
Yeah.
bones would eventually become multi-million-dollar contracts. I must have did that with 40 people. I wrote a list down, just like on your little pad here. I wrote a list of all the influencers in this town and went to them. Checked off everybody who gave me a handshake. The minute I started CFI, I went back to everyone down the list, the same order. And I think my first year of business, I had $1 million worth of contracts.
Good shit.
That's how quick it was. Because I did my work. I didn't just jump in.
Yeah.
I talked to people. I helped everybody. What I did is I enlisted everybody to help start my business with me. And that's what people don't always do.
Yeah. And you built that rapport over time of them dealing with you and you helping them. That just went a longer way, right? When you started your business
Correct.
and built that trust.
Give me a good foundation to start with.
Yeah.
And then you start other companies that you don't have that foundation. So then you really got to go pick the brains of guys who have already walked those steps before you. And then how do you take the advice that they give you and then utilize it to make a successful decision or good decisions. To this day, I still don't make big decisions without talking to some of my mentors.
Yeah.
And they've been there, done that. So, you know, I think mentorship and talking to businessmen who are in a like industry or businesswomen, obviously, in the like industry, saves a lot of stress and unnecessary,
Yeah.
you know.
And you're learning from somebody else's mistakes too, right?
You know, the
able
best
to
thing
pick
about good
their brains.
entrepreneurs, they want you to be successful too.
Exactly.
So, advice is free. Take it with a grain of salt because you're not as aggressive as I am, or vice versa. You should have gone left instead of right. There's always things you should be concerned with. But at the end of the day, take advice with a grain of salt and then fill it in for yourself what you think you can do to make it more successful.
Maybe a lot of them don't even own real estate yet. But this is, this podcast is good because I know you have a lot of knowledge when it comes down to real estate and investing, and making smart decisions instead of impulsive decisions or emotional decisions.
Right.
So kind of switching gears a little bit, talking about real estate now. Obviously we touched a little bit about your story, entrepreneurship, and a little bit about your businesses and things like that. So now switching it to real estate, for the people watching, why do you think it's smart for somebody to invest in real estate, first of all?
Well, overall, doing investments with your money is smart. Okay, I mean, putting your money in a bank account, earning no interest, it can be one of the most foolish things, especially when you have a lot of money. Once you start getting up there, 20, 30, 40, 50, $60,000, and you're just letting it sit there in your bank account, it's earning zero. Your money should always be working for you. And at some point, you need to have a mindset that anything you buy should be an investment.
Yeah.
Anything you buy. You don't see me driving a $200,000 Ferrari. Why? Because it continues to depreciate.
Exactly.
But will I invest on a classic car, a 1960
Those-
or 1971
yeah, those-
Cuda with a Hemi?
Heck yeah.
Yes, because when I bought it, it continues to appreciate regularly. So now it's an investment I can enjoy versus the stock market or bonds or whatever.
The
So-
older those classics get, the better.
well, they continue to appreciate.
Yeah.
They don't depreciate, and you can instantly sell them. I have some that have appreciated 30, 40%. That's more money than you can in stock markets or even in real estate. So
Right.
everything you buy at a certain period, you have to start looking at as an investment. And that's one of the lessons that young people fail to do. They tend to, and I was there. You want the nicer car, you want the cooler house, you want the nicest clothes. and all you're doing is you're spending that money you're bringing in and making nothing from it, because
Right.
those aren't investments. Your house where you live in, yeah, you can say it's an investment, but you get a loan against it, but it's not making you money, you're paying into it. Investment makes you money while you have it.
Yeah. And that was probably one of the biggest lessons I've ever gotten from you. You know, meeting you and working with you, you know, we worked on a couple deals together. And when we did talk, you know, you kind of brought that up to me, and that was something that was very new to me as a newer real estate agent. You know, it was my first year, just finished my first year. And when you did mention, you know, one of the worst or maybe one of the less smartest decisions you can make is buying a house if you're looking to buy an investment property. And you kind of broke down the difference on investment properties, just like what you said. An investment property makes you money in that term, not just at the end, not just 10 years from now when you sell.
Your investment.
Correct.
Yeah. So to rephrase what you said, I would, buying a home for yourself is a good investment regardless, because it's your home,
Right.
and as long as you own it and you're paying into it versus renting an apartment, it's an investment. The thing is, it's not going to make you money, you're paying into it, but maybe someday you'll rent it out and go to the next one. It's just not the smartest investment to buy a home to look to rent it out later,
Yeah.
because that's
If you're looking for income,
that's not going to work. So
it's not going to work.
but it's a good investment as far as renting, because when you're renting, and I shouldn't say this because I own rental properties all over town, but still, we're all at different positions and stages in our life. So
Right.
renting and buying are two different aspects and two different phases in our life. But for now, if you have the money and you can buy a home, then buy a home versus renting. But if you want to start early making investments and being smart with your money, as a 25-year-old guy, I didn't know what I wanted. If I bought a house at 25, it's not going to be the house I end up when I'm 50.
Right.
My tastes change, my lifestyles change, who I am as a person changes. So buying a house that young was really dumb. So I'm not saying it was done for me. I'm not saying it's done for anybody else. What I should have done is bought a multifamily home, a duplex or a quad, and lived on one side for about 2-3 years, then bought the next one, lived on one side for 2-3 years. Because right now they would be making money and they'd be paid off, all of them by now.
Right.
Instead, you're trying to sell a house that just got uglier and getting uglier, got older.
And you're gonna
It's
have
all
to
you can
maintain
afford. And
and-
you're not
yeah,
maintaining.
definitely.
And the commercial properties can appreciate better. So, to clarify what you said, I think what I told you is don't buy your first home, buy your first income property.
Right.
Move into one of the spots that one tenant pay your note, the other two tenants put money in your back pocket.
Definitely.
And then if you continue on that path, because if your return on investment, what we call ROI, is a good percentage, then you're building money in your bank account. You're building more liquidity, and at that point you'll develop more money to save. And now you're you're ready for your next property, and then boom, you buy one 2-3 years later, because you're saving with it. You're working, plus you're also making money, and boom, your next one comes in.
Right.
So you could buy one every few years, and after you buy one every few years, by the time 20 years goes by, the 20-year notes, you own, I don't know, 50 units, which is 50 apartments, and you're semi-retired and you're living life great because they're all paid off, and now you're making $200,000-300,000 a year net profit in your back pocket. So, and that has nothing to do with the value of the properties. The value of the properties could be $4 or $5 million. So if you want
Right.
to throw them on the market, I mean, you just and it was never your money that paid for those apartments. It was always the people who you rented to.
Right.
So you're saying $4 or $5 million. Well, what did you put in? Nothing. Why did I put anything in? Because your ROI was so high, your return was within 2.5 years. So you got your money back. The remaining 17.5 years was pure profit.
And that's insane, especially for people that kind of don't understand that. You know, somebody that is completely new to real estate investing. What does that mean for the bank? Because we're talking buying a property every 2 years. Now, when you do have an income generating property, what does a bank look at that like?
Well, the banks look at, okay, if you're an existing investor. Remember, I'm not an agent or real estate agent. I'm an investor.
Right.
And I became an investor just by selling some of my companies, and also properties I bought during that period. But banks consider the cap rate of a building, Cap rate means with all things considered, how much can that building return you on investment or give you a return on investment? How much money is that building? How much money can that building provide to you, and plus what's it worth? So they're looking for a cap rate. Once they know that cap rate, they can get a value of that building and what they think you should be paying down on it. But the risk lessens the more apartments you own. See, if you own one house, then the only asset you have is that house, unless you're very liquid. Liquid meaning when somebody speaks about liquidity, they speak about cash, hard cash. At the end of the day, hard cash is really the most important thing, because that's your buying power, your strength. So when the bank looks at you and they want to give you a loan for the next income property, they start looking at some point at the number of units you have, because you're less risk when you have apartments spread out amongst multiple locations.
Right.
So once you start getting about 10, 15 units, they're saying, oh, well, that it's not no longer one apartment or one house. It's now 15 units.
Bringing in income.
Bringing in income, so now you're less risk, because think about it, if you have a quadruplex with 4 or a triplex with 3, if you don't rent one, the other 2 are still going to pay the note. One can pay the note. The other 2, but if you have one house
and you don't have a
and
renter,
you don't have a renter, as it is, just owning a house and having somebody rent it, you barely break even, if you can even break even.
Right.
And you're on that note for 20 or 30 years, and you're barely breaking even. Most of the guys I know who own homes aren't breaking even. And when they don't rent them, they're paying. But when you own a triplex or a quad or even a duplex, you're not paying ever out of your pocket unless the whole building's empty.
Yeah.
So the bank knows this. So they're looking at overall, how many units do you have? And then they consider that a risk. If you have 20 units, but you're 70% occupied, they're not looking at each building, they look at the units, and you're 70% occupied. They say, it's a good client.
Yeah, because they're still seeing that income coming in.
Good client, going to give you a lower interest rate,
Right.
turn around and give you the loan. So you have to start that way when it comes to income properties. You have to start, in my opinion, multi-tenant versus single. I think real estate agents are trained to buy a home and rent it. Buy homes, rent it. Every real estate agent I ever talked to tells me, buy a house and rent it. And I'm thinking, why?
Right.
Because you never make money until it's paid off.
Exactly.
But why not buy a triplex? Because I bought a triplex for $165,000. Each unit rents for $750. In fact, I break it all down.
So
that's almost $2,300 a month I make on that property.
Right. And that's all income.
That's pure income. Now, once I remove my debt services, insurance, all the NOI stuff, net operating expenses, I'm left with making about $1,000 in my back pocket. But the point is, $1,000 a month. But the point is,
$12,000 a year.
$12,000 a year. The point is, if I bought a house for $160,000 to rent it out for $1,000 a month, which is what you're going to get, 12,
you're
13, 14, you're getting $100 a square foot.
Yeah, definitely.
$100 a square foot. So if the house is $1,600, you're buying it about $100 a square foot these days. So a 1,600 square foot home is going to cost you almost $160,000, which means you're only going to rent it for max $100 a square foot at $60.
Yeah, right now a house that's $160 on today's interest rates, 4.6. What are we at? 4.5, a little over than that. At $160, you're looking at close to $300. I mean $1,300 right now. $1,300 a month.
The debt service.
Yeah, and good luck renting that.
Well, you're going to rent for $100 a square foot. So you rent it for $1,600, which means you're making $300. Oh, but we got the insurance to pay and the taxes to pay, unless the taxes are included in that figure. So you're breaking even.
Right.
Take that same dollar amount you were able to buy a triplex for $160, and now the note payment of $1,300 is still $1,300.
Right.
But now you're making.
You're still financing the same amount.
Same value.
And just breaking that down for you guys. I mean, to break it down as simple as we can, if you're gonna buy a house, there's nothing wrong with buying a house. That's still an investment.
It's better than renting. Obviously.
Yeah, it's definitely better than renting, throwing away your money.
It's an asset, and you're investing in yourself. For that.
Definitely. And I mean, every time you're making that payment, it's going right into your mortgage, So in time, 5-10 years that you do want to sell that house, you're gonna have some equity built up.
I think the idea is, if you're younger, you want to start looking at investment property as a future versus trying to buy a house for the first time And then, okay, now what do? I own this. I'm now debt poor on a house because,
Exactly.
or
And you don't have,
what's
there's
the
no
saying
room.
called house poor.
Yeah.
Versus you start now. Now, if you're older, late 40s, you can start doing it then. But chances are, a guy my age isn't going to want to shoot in and live with 4 other tenants in a quadruplex. No, by now, forget it. I'm past that. I'll just buy a house and I'll do other forms of investment.
Right.
But if you start young, and these are the tips they don't give you you don't get when you're young. But you also need capital. Let's face it. You do need some form of capital. But that's why you don't spend your money on frivolous things. That's why you don't have to be, you don't have to be the best dressed. You don't have to have the nicest car. All you need is to be, speak with a firm voice and have.
And humbled down, I think too. You don't have to have all the fancy stuff.
And people will look at you the same way.
Right. Yeah, and I've noticed that too. Like, I actually don't. I don't know if you've ever seen this, because I know we've had a lot of lunches and things. I never.
Your dress is very nice, by the way. I'm just gonna say.
I don't wear button-ups. So let's say
That's proposed rent. So if all units were rented yearly, it should make me $38,400 on the fourplex, right?
right.
Which means $32,000 a month I should make, right? And if you keep going down, all right. So that's gross income. You have gross income. How much can this potential income property make me? In this case, it makes up to $30,400. Monthly, it's $32,000. All right, now that I know how much it makes, now let's do the deductions from what it makes. Because obviously, if something makes you $100 a month, but it costs you $100 a month, run for the mountains. You don't want to get away from that deal, right?
And you got to be true to these investments too. When you find them, you don't want to sugarcoat anything to make it sound better, just so that you don't want to get emotions involved. Numbers are numbers. Black and white is black and white.
Black and white with investment property. There's no gray areas. Now you can look at investment property and see I can put this much work and make a little bit more money, but at the end of the day, numbers are numbers, right? So we'll talk about this a little bit more again. So we know this is a fourplex. This is one of my fourplexes on Thorn. It has 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. I'm sorry, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It has a gross income of $38,400, monthly $3,200. All right, now we know the total gross. Now let's take deductions off of it. So the deductions start off at $70,000, or taxes are $7,091. Sorry,
And that's your year-to-date taxes, right?
So that's the year. That's the year. That's how much I'm expected to pay, and that's a true number. That's actually what I pay. Low battery. Which monthly? I break the monthly down so you can have a monthly value because I have total numbers here. Estimated operating expenses. This is lawn care, refrigeration care, things I know I have to fix out there. It's a quadruplex. They don't cost me a lot, so I estimated $1,000. In this case, it was about $1,100 last year, but it's still close enough for this spreadsheet on calculating if I'm going to make a good investment.
Right.
So
you're looking at about $83 a month, $85 a month.
Yeah, $1,000 for this one. Now, insurance on this property. Insurance is important. You have to have commercial insurance for this.
What would insurance help you with?
Well, if somebody hurts themselves, if the place catches on fire, liability,
Right.
In this case, it's $1,335 a month. A year for $112 a month. So, net operating expenses, what I do is I then take the total of $38,400 for gross income and I start subtracting all the costs associated. You notice the debt service isn't here, right?
Yeah.
Because debt service is not part of an operating expense. That's a loan. Because if I bought the building in cash, would I have a debt service?
No. You wouldn't have a note.
So this is really just the hard cost of that property. When I add these all up and I subtract it with $38,400, I come up with $28,973. I didn't get a manicure, so my nails are kind of like. Ben already pointed that out earlier.
So your NOI, net operating expense, is about
10%.
$28,973, which equals
Cash, which is about a 10%. 10.21%. So that's not bad, but you can always make a little bit of money on the ROI. It just depends on what we're doing on the note value.
Right.
So
and note, we mean mortgage. So when you guys are financing your first investment property, if you're not paying cash, there's obviously going to be a mortgage note. So now that we've gotten, how much rent this is going to give us a year, and we've gotten the deductions, the interest, the taxes, the insurance, we've subtracted all that. We're left with this number, $28,973. So what we're going to do now,
we've turned that into percentage because investors like percentages. That becomes a 10% NOI investment, okay? With a dollar value associated with $28,000. Now I look at the price that the owner wanted. He wanted $342,000 for this property. I just, that was too much. I'm not going to pay that. I paid $283,000 for this property, right? So $283,000. I also calculate a cap rate with an estimated 9% cap rate with vacancy. What I do here is I try and give me a value what the bank would offer me for this property. So I take all the costs, I take all the potential income, I take everything associated with the property, and I come up with a cap rate.
Right.
Banks need cap rates themselves to determine what the value of a property is as an income property. Payment was $1,400. $1,400 a month. Now that's the truth. That's what I'm actually paying against that note. Now let's go back. That's my note, right? So that's what I'm paying a month.
Right.
Let's go back to what I'm making a month. $3,200 a month.
So you're making $3,200 a month.
And then I subtract. Well,
your debt service.
Actually, it's going to be that.
So break that down. 28. So
Well,
per
32.
year.
It's about 3,000 off.
Yeah.
28. So 3,000. So at the end of the day, I break it all down. I'm making almost $12,000 a month a year on that property.
$12,000 a year.
It's an 80% ROI. Now, if you look down, I got higher ROI. That's my lowest ROI, except for this one here, but I didn't buy it. That's why it's there. But see all these? I own these 5 buildings here on this spreadsheet.
Right.
18%, 24. I always wanted in the 20s, 24, 24, 20. Why did I buy this one here? Because it's in a high traffic area.
Right.
So I was willing to
Good
risk.
location.
Good location means I'll always have it rented versus another location that has high ROI, but maybe is hidden in the back.
Exactly.
And might not get may have a single unit empty longer than a location. That was a great bid purchase because that place is always rented because it has so much traffic.
So what's your occupancy right now?
100%.
100%.
So it was a good gamble. It's always occupied. So this one makes me $11,740
So that's almost $12,000 right there.
a year.
Right?
Yeah. Yes.
How soon are you making your investment back? You dropped 56.
Well, the ROI is 18% on this one,
Right.
not like the one you were showing at 30. So when the lower the ROI, like these are faster, but the lower the ROI, this one's 18% at 12,000. So basically, this one, if my investment is
Take
56,000,
about 5 years.
56. No, I'll take less than that. It'll probably probably about 5 years. Yeah, it'll
Close
take
to
about
5
5
years,
years.
yeah.
So after 5 years, remaining 15 years are pure profit. That's a lower ROI. I took a
Yeah.
gamble on that. So
And
it
especially
happens.
on a 20-year note after you got 15 years of profit.
Right.
Right.
But you have these others that are higher. They're running at 24, 25. I got some properties made me 25,000 a year
That's insane.
at 24%. So you just got to have one that's paying me 36,000 a year right now.
And even at that, I mean, somebody that is working.
And
a
I own
9
that
to
one.
5, the 36,000.
Yeah.
So somebody that is working a 9 to 5, I mean, what would an extra $12,000 a year mean? You know, how long
Well,
would it take you?
hopefully it means they're going to buy their next property.
Right.
They're not buying brand new cars and houses.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever.
Do a quick swipe through.
Do a quick swipe. So we're talking investing right now. You know, John is a business owner, entrepreneur, developer, and very successful, has a lot of knowledge for us. This podcast, you know, we've been going for about 45 minutes now.
Approximately.
Approximately, we've drinking a couple glasses of some fine wine. Today we're drinking some fine wine. That's how many scotches. This is actually only my second one, so not too fat. But we're breaking down right now, you know, what a good investment property looks like and the difference between investment properties, what makes an investment property an investment property. So, you know, if you guys do have any questions about investing or purchasing a property here in El Paso, go ahead and drop your comment here and John will be answering them. We're going to go ahead and continue with our podcast. We'll be answering questions as they come. I'm going to hand my phone back over to Sosa, the man behind the camera. And he's going to go ahead and hold on to that. So right now we were kind of just breaking down one of the properties that you just bought, kind of breaking down what actually makes a good deal in your eyes, right? So kind of switching gears a little bit, what would you say as an investor, what are some things that keep you away from deals? What are some things that you kind of stay away from when deals are presented to you?
Well, as we've discussed, we've been going through this. Let me get this over. We've been going through this, and I guess those of you joining us live, you missed the whole portion on how we go from NOI to ROI. How do you make a good decision on property that's making you a good return on your investment, and how long it would take you to get that return on investment? So, how do I stay away from bad deals? Well, it's black and white. The numbers don't lie. So, if your return on investment is almost as long as the note, why buy it? If the return on investment is so far out that you can't get your money back within a fair period of time, and I think if you can't get your money back within 5 years max, it's too long already.
Right.
And what does that mean? Let's say if you're buying a $100,000 property, you have to put $25,000 down before you get that $25,000 back. Remember, it's not the $100,000 that's the investment.
Yeah.
It's the $25,000.
You're not dropping
put
100,000. You're financing 80 to 75%
to
of
value.
that
Yeah.
loan.
So it's the $25,000 you have to get back, or the $20,000, depending on what your note is. That's what you look for. How long does it take you to get that investment?
Right.
Return on investment. So most of my properties will get it back for you in about 3 years. Amazing. Because then after that, the remaining 17 years is pure profit.
Right.
So if I'm making $15,000 a year on an income property, which is just over $1,100 a month, in my back pocket, after the third year, all that money now goes into my
It's not
pocket every
profit.
month. Yeah.
Right.
So now I'm getting
Every
that,
first of the month, you're collecting
right
profit.
after notes, debt services, everything. It's all straight cash. So that's the business of making money when it comes to rental properties. And then after that, you go to your next property, buy another one. So at some point, you're making $50,000 a month in income from all your properties, and they've already been paid off. Your return investment was the 3 years. In some cases, you showed me one that's just over 2.5. I mean, that's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So, in a nutshell, you stay away from properties that the return on investment is too far out, and how much money you're making. Look for an ROI, return on investment, that, for me, I look for them in the 20s. Some people don't need it that quick,
Right.
because at 20% ROI is kind of like that's how much money you're making on your money.
Yeah.
Once
Which
you
is a
get
good
down-
interest rate, right? I mean,
Well, once you get down to 7%, 8%, 9%, some people live with it. Well, that's investment values. I mean,
Right.
gosh, I could put money into my retirement plan and make about that if I aggressive and it's
CD or
safer.
something, yeah.
So I mean, why bother? So at this point, once you're down that low, why go through all that work? Just throw it in an investment with an investor versus doing income properties.
Right. Yeah, so, breaking down what makes a good deal, what kind of deals you stay away from. I guess the biggest takeaway is basically, investment properties are black and white. And it comes down to numbers. Obviously, if you're buying a house, a single residence for you and your family, this isn't, really what we're talking about. We're talking about, if you want to buy an investment property for that purpose of having an investment every single month. Those are some of the key things that you guys want to look for. Obviously, it takes a lot of skill and a lot of time and a lot of research to know all these things, to know the terms, to know what to look for. And I know we're kind of just touching on the iceberg, or the tip of the iceberg on these things, so if you do have any questions, obviously drop them down here. And we'll go ahead and answer them for you. But obviously, one thing I think that is important is finding somebody that's also knowledgeable in helping you, especially if you are a first-time investor.
That's right.
Tell me about your first deal. How was that?
Well, let's see. Commercial. I'll go with
First
I
real
own
estate,
commercial
yeah.
properties, but
Okay.
but I guess apartments are commercial too. But I think my first deal was not my favorite. The numbers added up, but what I didn't pay attention to was location. So even if if everything on paper, black and white, looks good, what I failed to realize, which I know now, is location. They always say location, location.
Mm-hmm.
It's true, because if no one knows you exist, if nobody sees that property, let's take a busy street here. Let's say Montana. If you own a property on Montana that has a for rent sign, how much traffic are you getting in front of that street? Or Mesa? Tons.
Right.
Or then you go off a street off of Montana, like Cotton's, tons of traffic. But let's say you got a street like off of St. John's, a fourplex. Where's St. John's? I don't know, but I know there's a St. John's.
I don't know either.
Because I know a guy who owns a property on St. John's, but where the hell is it? I don't know. So I had a property, I couldn't rent it. It just sat there and sat there and sat. I did everything. I asked friends for tips, and I could not rent it.
And it was just location. People.
It was
didn't want
location.
to
It was
live
a
in that
pretty
area.
place. It was nice. It was great. So it sat vacant for 8 months. So I had to eat that note for 8 months.
Wow.
So that was my biggest mistake, is not learning location. None of the answers, did I sell the property? No, I kept it because I'm an optimist. Because I knew Fort Bliss was coming, bringing in more soldiers. So what?
And in
rented-
Fort Bliss is.
So
It's insane.
I rented it to a soldier just by chance because I put it on Craigslist. He rented it. He told other soldiers, so now it's all rented. So I held on to it because I knew it was a good opportunity. I knew the ROI was high. It's one of the ones we looked at. And I'm happy today to say it's all rented. But I learned my lesson.
Yeah.
You've got to, if you're going to own rental properties that are not homes, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're going to be one of those people who own homes, fine. If you want to own 20 homes, it doesn't matter. You just put them out and people want to rent homes. But if you're going to do apartments, quads, duplexes, triplexes, sixplexes, eightplexes, tenplexes, location means something.
Yeah.
The other thing is, shopping for a quadruplex or a small apartment complex where there's a ton of saturation already, that's another don't do it, because there's a bunch of guys trying to sell all their quads right now on the east side, but it's in a saturated area where there's like 40 quads.
And one of those big signs, and I know we've seen it too, going to different properties, is we'll
Yeah.
go to a property, you look across the street and you look in every which direction, and you see for rent signs, for rent signs, for rent signs.
They can't rent them, so why would
Yeah.
I buy something that people can't rent? You show me a property area that's 100% rented.
Right.
That says a lot. That means people want to be there.
And there was actually one unit that was vacant yesterday. They
And it's
called me
rented
today.
too.
It's rented. So that does say something about location, especially pricing and all that stuff. So definitely, your biggest mistake, and that was one of them.
Biggest mistake
knowing
is not
location.
understanding location better than I should. But I was early on. Now it's all about I'm looking for places that have higher traffic areas.
Yeah.
So when you show them to me, or when you bring me a deal or anybody, I always going to ask how busy are the streets around there.
Yeah.
Because it makes a big difference. I recently purchased a property. I say recently, it was like 6 months ago. The builder was going bankrupt. I took it over and I finished it for him, which is another thing. If you have liquidity, you can buy places from guys going bankrupt or guys or builders who have run out of money, and you can take it off their hands for pennies on the dollar, as long as you can cut a check for that amount.
Right.
But you get the property with that great word of instant equity. In this case, the property is probably worth about $850,000, but I only paid $530, so I have a $320,000
instant equity,
instant
right.
equity. So those are great deals.
We have a question. What kind of properties here in El Paso have the highest ROI in your experience?
And who's that from?
This is Matthew.
The highest ROI, there's different philosophies. The more the units, the higher the ROI. Honestly, that's really the truth. So the guys who own these giant apartment complexes that may have 200 units, 200 apartments, like they're building up here in Montecillo, those have the highest ROI. Okay.
Mhm.
But that's not an investment you're going to do. You're not going to come up with $2-3 million to do that. So let's bring it back down to maybe someone who can afford a $200,000 or $150,000 investment. My rule of thumb, and I think I've told you this, Manny, never buy smaller than a triplex.
Right.
Never buy smaller than a triplex, because a duplex costs too much, and there's only two sources of income. Especially if you're going to be one of those guys who start off young and buy a duplex, move into one, and then eventually move out
It's
to the
the
next one.
same concept as buying a house, because if that person's not rented, then you're covering the whole.
You're covering the thing.
Right.
Where a triplex, you can have it, only one tenant in there, and they're still paying the note or the debt services or fully loaded. So I say don't buy nothing less than a triplex if you're going to buy anything. If you're going to be doing a return, if you're going to do an investment property, start a triplex. Now the ROI is all dependent on how much you pay for it and what the NOI is, what the net operating expenses are. So they all kind of go together. So knowing that, the lower the NOI, the lower the price, the higher the income, the gross income, that's going to get your ROI. So when you calculate it, look for something that pays you. Instead of looking for the best paying ROI, look for something that has an ROI in the 20s. And that's going to be your best opportunity. So don't turn down a deal just because it's not the best, because you're not going to get the guys in the 30s like you just came to. You're going to get guys mainly in the 12s and 13s and 14s,
Right.
and you'll happen to come across the 20 ROIs. So that's what you want to look for versus looking for the lowest. I hope that answers it.
So, Matthew, hopefully that answered your question. And Matthew is actually a 17-year-old high school student that is going to be getting into real estate.
Oh, nice.
So,
Congratulations.
Matthew, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. You know, we're talking about investment properties for you guys that are just joining in. And for those of you that are listening right now on our podcast, if you guys do have any questions, go ahead and drop them. But we're here with John, and he's answering and dropping some knowledge. So, John, you know, we've talked a little bit about entrepreneurship. We talked a little bit about investing. We talked a little bit about what deals to look for, what you kind of stay away from, you know, some of your biggest mistakes. You are a developer as well, right?
Well, we started branching off in development because people started bringing us raw land. And with the raw land, honestly, development has some of the highest returns in it. I wish I had done it sooner. So there's huge developers in this town, and a huge apartment owners, huge builders. I get all that. So we all have our niche. We all have our little area we stay in. But yes, we started developing, and in that, what we're doing is we're taking raw land, and we take that raw land and, like the term says, develop it. We put all the utilities. So let's say you get 5 acres of land. You take those 5 acres of land and you break them up into lots for a house. And then when you break them up, you supply the utilities, water, gas, electric, and then you turn around and bring the curb services, the streets, everything's done.
Yeah.
So that all you do is sell that finished land to a builder who then builds a house on it, or a commercial builder who wants to build a duplex on it. What's great about developing land is that you have very little risk to it. There's some risk, but you have very little, because you can develop a piece of property for $5,000, but then turn around and sell it for $35,000.
Right.
So your return is it's like 5 times your initial investment. That's one of the highest returns.
Yeah.
And that's why developing is so profitable.
Yeah.
The issue is finding good deals on the land.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, land is obviously something that they're not making anymore, and that's why, you know, their money is in land. So what kind of projects are you currently working on right now? I know you're a developer. I know some of the projects that you're working on right now. What projects do you want to share with the people?
Well, right now we're working on one that you actually brought to me, some land. We're doing about 40 units in Horizon, 40 land units. We're developing them. We're getting them rezoned for, I think, R4, which allows us to build duplexes on them. That way, we can either decide to make them all for duplexes. A commercial builder can go in there and build all duplexes, which means I'll get a higher return on the land. Or we just put houses into them.
Mm-hmm.
And we can sell them to one builder who wants to buy the lots from individual builders, and just create covenants as the value and style of the house.
Yeah, so kind of talking a little bit about, you know, that deal. You know, this is a good opportunity, especially for, you know, first-time investors, people that are thinking about investing. You know, we're waiting right now on the city, right, to see if we can build.
Well, we have a meeting coming up, I think on the 14th or 15th. They're going to vote on that rezoning. The land had no zoning to it.
Right.
So when we bought it, it had a zoning, it didn't have it. So it's kind of fun. I'm like having to fight for zoning now.
Yeah.
So I'll get a zoning. I'll either give regular residential, or I can put duplexes. So we're going to be good either way.
Yeah.
But I want to get the commercial, not the commercial, but the duplex. That way we have other buyers. Now guys who want to build commercial income properties. Which again, somebody wants to buy an income property, here's where they go. They go buy a duplex. And
Yeah. You got to start somewhere, you know. And
you have to start somewhere. Duplex is really not a bad place to start. I know Matt or Matthew, whatever, asked earlier, what's the best? I always say a triplex, but if you're going to buy something and you can only afford a duplex, do it. Move into one side,
Yeah.
rent the other side, keep it
It's
rented.
better than renting, and it's
better
better
renting.
than buying a single door, you know.
Yeah.
Because there's two.
As far as income
opportunities.
properties, your
Right.
future is to own properties, then yes, don't buy a single door where you're going to. He's talking about a single door unit. He means one house. Because you
Get
really can't
into
rent a
real estate
house for
lingo.
income. Yeah, you can't really make income off a house because the value of the debt services and the insurances and taxes almost equal to rent. So
Right.
versus income properties that have multiple tenants to pay those services and then give you money in your back pocket.
Yeah.
So, John is a developer as well, and right now the property that we're talking, whoa, almost fell off my chair.
And he's
No, I'm not. Really slippery. So, the property that we're talking about, this was actually a dead piece of land, raw, right? No utilities, no gas, no water, no electric.
It was just an eyesore in the middle of an existing community. It was kind of funny. It was a
Heart
nice-
of Horizon, right?
really in the heart, right by the Walmart and stuff. And I'm surprised nobody ever found it. In fact, when we started to look in development, people kept telling us how, they wish they'd known about it. They all would have bought it. It was a great deal for us. It's going to be a great investment. I don't want to share the numbers, but I will tell you we'll probably clear about 5 times our initial investment on this property.
Yeah.
Which is unheard of. So those deals come along. You just got to look for them. When you're an investor and you're buying things, never rush into anything. Never push a deal. Never try to make that deal just because you fall in love with it. Be patient. Let the good stuff. Set a standard of what you want. That's why I develop spreadsheets. Set a standard on the return on investment, the ROI, and don't leave it.
Don't divert from it, yeah.
Right. Stick with what you decided, no matter how pretty, no matter how attached a building may get. That's what hurts you.
You gotta
Stick
be
to it.
disciplined, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
you
you
gotta be
cannot get that
disciplined.
return on investment, walk away.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it is, because money's money, and you only have it if you're making good investments.
Yeah, definitely. So be smart with your money. But John, you've dropped a lot of knowledge for us. What would you say, just kind of going now to the El Paso market right now? Obviously, we're here in the city. I feel like there's been so much growth in the last 5 years. We have so many businesses coming and so much money is being poured into the Far East Side. You have money being poured into the West Side and downtown, all over the place. What do you think is one of the most underrated areas in the city for investors in the next coming years?
Well, there's no doubt that Fort Bliss is growing a lot. It's expected about 10,000 more troops are going to be coming here with BRAC and the closing of more bases. Eventually, they're going to be coming for here. 10,000 troops is a lot of troops. That's 10,000 families. Well, that's not 10,000 families. There's a good number of families.
Yeah.
Fort Bliss likes to look at the northeast and east. So these areas, there's a big reason why east is growing so much.
Yeah.
West is kind of landlocked. And
Yeah,
that's why it's more
there's
price.
there's not a lot of growth. There is some growth, but you see a tax. You see an instant
It
tax of
increases.
at least $30,000
Well,
on
it's
the West Side. compared
West
to
Side
East.
can have more desirable areas,
Right.
Because East Side is becoming more desert.
Right.
But you get more bang for your buck on the East Side. Your dollar goes a lot further. So, in fact, I was walking with a realtor the other day, and they were showing a house, and the client could not see that he had an instant equity of 30 grand just to buy that house, but he couldn't get over it. He didn't understand it, so he wanted to go look at something else. I'm like, wow, this is exactly what you want. You're gonna get $30,000 instant equity because you're here on the East Side, and he didn't get it. It could be a great investment property.
Question. This is from Matthew again, and Matthew, we actually answered this on the podcast, but I'll let John kind of touch on this for a second. What is some of the mistakes that you've made and learned from while investing in real estate or in properties?
Okay, well, specifically, let's mention income properties like rental properties for residential. Let's say a quadruplex or eightplexes or sixplexes, or even a duplex. Early on, the big mistake I did was looking at pretty places, nice places that look like, hi, I would like to live there. Well, another point about buying places, never buy a place where you would live, because at some point your standard just keeps going up. So you want to buy a place that's just nice and clean.
Buying a super expensive.
Yeah, you'll never rent it. So you end up buy a place that you think is clean and it's comfortable to give someone you would rent to. But with that being said, biggest mistake is buying a residential property that is hidden. It's a gem, but it's hidden, and now you need so much advertisement to rent it because no one knows it's there. Versus a place off Mesa Street, Montana, Yarborough, Lee Trevino, places that you can put a sign for rent, and boom, people have so much traffic they're going to rent it right away. That it's less work to rent a property that is visibly heavy visibility versus a place that doesn't. Now that's for multi-tenant places. Houses are different. You can do a house and put it in a newspaper and somebody who wants to rent a house. But for multi-tenant, I think high traffic areas are the best place.
Yeah, Focusing on location.
Well,
You
it saves
hear
you
it all the
money.
time.
Saves
Yeah.
you money. It's all about making money back.
Right. And it's finding, where and what people want to live in, You don't want somebody or something that you wouldn't even live in, and you're trying to push to people. That's going to be super hard for you to find tenants, and you're just going to end up struggling. So good. We got a whole bunch of content. I'm really excited for you guys to see the full episode coming out this coming Wednesday with John. You dropped a whole bunch of knowledge. This is probably one of those interviews that most people have to pay for. And I'll just say that because you've really dropped a lot of gold nuggets for people to really
Well, we're
take.
giving snippets of knowledge. Unfortunately, you can sit down with somebody talking for hours and really teach them on things. But here we're just trying to answer a few questions. And but like I say, Manny can, or like Manny mentioned, he can take your questions, and I'd be more than willing to answer them through him.
Awesome. So, real quick, two final questions. One is for the audience. I know some of you guys aren't investors, but a lot of the people that are listening in on the podcast here on iTunes or watching on YouTube, a lot of you guys are real estate agents as well, just like me, So that's a cool thing about real estate is I get to build a network of a bunch of friends. In real estate, we all get to network together. So if you are a real estate agent and you do come across, an investment property or a good deal, John will kind of tell you a little bit about what he looks for in a good deal. If you do have any deals that, do come up, John is a cash buyer also. So
I do a lot of cash deals. I'm quick turnaround, 5 to 10 days, depending on how much a discount on the price we can get. So yeah, we can close within 5 days to 10 days. I'll look at the property, do initial inspection. And the cash purchases, we're not limited, but it's all on the return on investment for me.
Right. So what type of properties should real estate agents be sending you? What type of properties do you buy?
The thing is, I get so much feeds of properties, and I just instantly look at the price, and I look at how much they're getting on gross income, and right off the bat, they tell me it's worth looking at or not. So some of the things that I would consider is if they know how to calculate an ROI, calculate an ROI. If they don't, then ask me, and I'm more than willing to help. Manny will tell you, he came to me and I started helping him right off the bat. I have no problem, because if I can teach you how to learn how to make an ROI, not an NOI, but an ROI, teach you how to calculate that, then you're going to bring me a good deal every time. So it's that simple. I'll teach you how to do it. If you know how, then bring me a deal. I'm looking for ROIs that start in the 20s before I even start looking at it, because there's so many good deals now. I don't have to get less.
Right, so I'm gonna drop the email if you are a real estate agent, if you do run across a property, distressed property, investment property.
Distress, bankruptcies also help. I mean, there's a lot for that. You got to catch it before they go bankrupt or before they fall. Make sure they're clean. They have not too much debt against them.
Right. And pre-MLS also, we love those, right?
Pre-MLS stuff, especially you have that grandma that has like 5 acres of land and wants to get rid of. I'll write a check.
64 acres.
64 acres. The deal Manny from Verizon brought it for me from older lady who was trying to sell 5 acres. I loved it. Paid her cash. Took us 5 days.
Yeah.
Wrote a check for 5 days.
Right. So yeah, I'm gonna drop the email if you guys do have any investment properties that you do want to run by John. Go ahead and send those investment properties to carrerainvest@gmail.com. I'll go ahead and drop the email on the comments, and I'll help you guys break down that ROI if you don't know how to figure it out. That way we could go ahead and present it, and if it's a good deal, if it makes sense, it makes money, right? So it's a good deal. So awesome. One last question for you, John. We're live right now. We're on the podcast for iTunes. Make sure you guys check out the full podcast coming out this Wednesday. A lot of information for anybody that's looking to purchase their first property, their 10th property. If you're thinking about investing in your first property, there's a lot of helpful information on this podcast, so make sure you guys check it out. We've been talking for quite a bit of time. We've had a bunch of
We've
drinks.
been drinking for one.
Yeah, and we've
been
cleaned 2
talking
bottles.
for one, so it's like 2 hours. We did clear 2 bottles back then.
Yeah.
The fact that we can even talk sensibly is amazing to me at the moment.
Right?
Well, more for Manny because he's
I'm actually
novice whiskey drinker.
Yeah, I'm not, but I have I could talk while I'm drinking, so that's fine. But one question that I kind of want to just end with, what is your favorite thing to do here in El Paso? What's that one place or restaurant or coffee shop or that one place that you just can't get enough of here?
Well, it wouldn't be for me. I think it's not about the restaurants or the bars. We have a lot of fabulous restaurants and bars. So that's not where I look when I want to go relax and go have a good time. My favorite things are our surroundings. Going out and hanging out at Percha Dam and going fishing there, or go up to Waco Tanks and climb the cliffs, or go up to Trans Mountain and hike over to McCalkin Canyon, or go visit the Gila and hang out at City of the Rock. See, it's our surroundings. We have so much nature on there. So,
and a lot of people don't know, like even people that have lived here their entire life don't know the cool little things or cool little drives, quick drives that we have accessible to us.
There's so much for us to do around here. So when you talk about bars and restaurants, there's so many cool bars and restaurants here.
Yeah.
That's not what I like to do. That's not my favorite thing. I mean, it's just something. I mean, I like here too.
Yeah.
In fact, it's
Vitolas.
Vitolas.
Yeah.
Great cigar shop, and they have great whiskeys. And I actually come here and read every now and then. But it's the outdoor stuff we have in this area that is so unique to our region.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually noticed that. I feel like I was watching Instagram, Facebook, and I was seeing so many people do all these cool things so close to El Paso. And I was like, what the hell? I've never even seen that, you know? So we actually just incorporated, me, Sosa, my marketing guy, we just incorporated weekly cool little trips or getaways that we're kind of promoting.
Getaways.
Yeah. Weekly, that way, you know, last trip we did was which one, Sosa? Or last
There's a aerial tramway.
the tramway, we just did the tramway.
Yeah,
I've never even been on the tramway.
Wiley area.
Yeah. The tramway, the one before that. I actually wanted to do the Edge of Texas when you guys told me about it.
Edge of Texas is kind of cool. Just a lot of history out there. Just so many cool spots. I guess at some point I'll write a lot of places you can go to because that's all I do. I spend my weekends trying to find things to do sometimes, you know, and travel like so.
That's cool.
Quick getaways.
Yeah.
Drive out and drive back. Have lunches in little tiny towns like in Hillsboro, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Just drive up there to have
Hole
lunch.
in the wall.
Hole in the wall. You walk in, you have lunch, you have pictures from the 30s and 40s. The restaurant used to be an old nickel and dime. I'm sorry, an old pharmacy. It still has its old stuff there. There's so many places just to hang out like that.
Yeah.
That we forget that they're out there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you said that because there is. I took notice to that. I know Sosa did over here as well, and that's why we started kind of incorporating that. I know you've probably seen it, Nancy, but yeah, it's been fun. So cool. I'm really excited for this podcast to come out. I'm really excited for all you guys to hear. You know what John has to share with you guys. You know, to kind of just touch on this again, John. You know, very successful person, influencer, you know, investor, developer, entrepreneur, definitely has a lot to share. So make sure you guys check out our podcast coming out next week on Wednesday and every podcast after that. I'm really excited again for this to come out. John, any closing words?
No, well, yes. I say no, but I mean yes. The advice I give everybody to young people in their 20s that I wish I'd gotten back then, that every time you spend $1 at a certain point, you should consider it an investment. The minute you start looking at every dollar you own should be used as an investment. It means every purchase you do should give you a percentage back on income, whether it's purchasing a house, purchasing any large properties or anything you buy at a certain age should be considered an investment. That way you can have an early period in life to start looking at retirement early.
And that financial freedom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because that's, I think, what is ideally the main cause of stress and the main cause of depression and suicide is a lot of people are so under pressure because of money. You know, something as simple as just making that monthly mortgage payment.
Especially when you're young, the keeping up with the Joneses attitude. You always want the best car. You want the coolest clothes. You want the best. I mean, we've had these conversations. You want the coolest house. You know, I came from nothing, yet here I am sitting, already retired practically. I mean, I spend my day doing what I want.
Yeah.
But if I had learned back then what I know now, I probably would have been more successful sooner. And then that is just quit wasting your money on frivolous things. It's not what people see. East side is really growing. Horizon's growing. The Northeast has huge potential with the 10,000 troops coming in. So I think all those areas. I love the West Side. West Side is great for the value it holds. I mean, if you buy a property 150,000 on the West Side, it tends to hold that value.
Yeah,
a bit
definitely.
more. East Side drops a little bit more, in my opinion. All this is all my opinion. So, hence why West Side can be more desirable. But it is landlocked. There's no growth.
Yeah, and that's why you actually see so much appreciation out in the West Side. And not that there's depreciation in the East Side, but those values are kind of at a standstill because there's so much growth. And that's what you usually kind of see in new developed areas that are still growing. Somebody that does want to sell their house, that just bought their house 2 years ago, usually tends to struggle a little bit more because they're going to have to price their house more strategically, more aggressive, because down the street they're still building that same floor plan for 5,000, 10,000 more, you know? So you do see a lot of prices right now on a standstill in the East Side, but that's only temporary. I feel like once we start developing a lot more out on the East Side, once we start running out of more room, and once we start reaching, you know, the mountains, those mountains on the other side that I didn't even know, you know, were there, then I think, you know, you're gonna see values appreciate more on the East Side.
And the other thing that I like more about, okay, one of the things I hope to see more in El Paso, and we're getting it more on the West Side than the East Side, which is why, again, we're getting better values. It's not part of the question you asked me with regards to underutilized areas that have potential. But one of the things that should be happening more on the East Side is the communities, all self-contained communities. You know, you have the Montecillo being built on the West Side here, and it has a movie theater, it has restaurants, it has bars, it has houses and apartments all around. It's created a community, kind of like when you go to the bigger cities, you never leave 2 blocks from your house because everything you need is within 2 blocks. Those communities are very helpful in keeping that income in that area. So the East Side hasn't really pushed that idea. It's become so cookie cutter in the East Side.
Yeah, and to that, I mean, right now in the East Side, with all the neighborhoods that are being developed, they're actually incorporating a lot of really cool and neat stuff. There's so much commercial land out there that people aren't really seeing yet, just because it hasn't really hit off of Zaragoza yet. It's going to, though. There's so much commercial. There's so much commercial land, but you know, in the East Side, I think right now it's just there's so much happening on the East Side, and the cool thing is that now city developers are implementing so many parks. Now every single new neighborhood that you come into, you're gonna have nice little parks, as well as that huge East Side sports complex. You know,
and they're doing more family things, and also just the streets, how more
wider, you know,
more plants,
more vegetation.
That's the best part about going to Phoenix, or some of these other cities around us, Albuquerque.
Right.
You see how they're developing their communities, developing their streets, developing their cities. It's becoming very conducive to where we're growing the millennials and everything, what they want. They want everything right around them. They can walk to it. So communities have got to start being geared that way. That's the only downside about the East Side. You have something, you have to go so far to get to something else. And we need to change some of that. But I see tremendous growth going that way.
Definitely.
Hence, I wouldn't have bought over there.
You have bought some investment properties up there, and even to that, I mean, the far East Side just offers so much growth. Yeah, but the accessibility that the city is now doing, there's so much accessibility from the far East Side to the Northeast to Horizon.
The loop helps a lot.
You know, the loop, and then you have John Hayes that will connect you from far east to the Horizon. Then you have Montana that could connect you easily to the loop.
Pelicano that goes to Horizon out.
So there's just so much accessibility. Maltwood is soon going to be connected to the other side of Maltwood, which your investment property is close to. So you know, there's a lot of accessibility. East Side, definitely one of those areas I think people should definitely look out for in the next.
I think for investment
years.
properties, there's a lot of opportunities right now. If you're a first-time investor, there's a lot of older properties that are being given up at this point. Guys are trying to sell them. Investors are trying to sell them because they're moving on to other investments. With the state of our government right now and how the interest rates are dropping in many areas, in other areas are increasing, but just because the economy is pushing, growth, everything, a lot of guys are selling some of the stuff they were being comfortable with and moving to bigger investments.
Right.
So
we've
it's
seen
kind of
that.
like
We've seen
stepping.
that.
They're moving to the next tier. So guys are dumping their properties. So here's an opportunity for people coming up to start pick up properties.
Yeah.
And you're gonna see that. You're gonna see great opportunities.
Yeah, you see a lot of people cashing out, and that's what we've been running into the last couple months. I find a lot of people cashing out on selling their quads and triplexes because they're building, 10 unit, 20 unit complexes. So they're moving money
honestly,
around.
I love 8 to 10 unit complexes.
Yeah.
I do. I just love them. I mean, they're just. It's all right there. You still need a guy to live there, and they just kind of work. They cost more. You're looking at $500,000 projects.
Yeah.
But they make money. Their return on investment's really high.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Die for the crown. I keep my ear to the street. I keep my eye to the clouds.
All I wanna do is be the best me.